So it all started innocently enough. Simple statement on the Horror Nights Twitter feed. Simply said, "What an excellent day," for an announcement. Then there was a very curious Snapchat image that was posted that had a bed, a devil above that bed, and a screaming emoji above it. Could it be? Is it possible? Has Murdy hooked the great white whale and we're going along for the ride? Or is this Hollywood only? That would be answered because a little bit later, several hours later, mind you, Halloween Horror Nights Orlando took to Twitter and said, "What do you say we announce something today?" So it was a share. But what was it? And of course, Murdy had to stir us up by saying this. He was talking about finishing the Terror Tram and working on Horror Nights Maze design. And he said, if we are good little boils and ghouls, we might get an early HHN present today. Have you been naughty or nice this year? So immediately, it was split. What was this going to be? Was this going to be something that we have prophesized was going to happen? Or was this going to be something that we only dreamt of actually happening? We wouldn't have to wait too long to find out. Because a little bit later, it was officially announced. Orlando took the reins first. There was a blog posted on blog.universalorlando.com written by Michael Aiello. And I actually have a link in the description bar below if you want to read that blog. And it said 3 simple words: haunting, shocking, indelible. This film is a benchmark in many ways. Based completely on the original 1972 William Peter Blatty's classic. It's going to be housed in a soundstage. Yes, we're getting a soundstage house. Their job was to create an attraction, adapting into a fully realized experience. It is a creative challenge every single year, especially when you ask many questions like, how do you adapt a film where most of the story takes place inside a single bedroom? Well, the answer they landed on was to break down and then assess all the visuals and moments from the film, piece together every moment within that bedroom, and examine just why it was intense, scary, or even vile. What textures can be reconstructed, sometimes in a very abstract way. The pea soup scene we all know and love. What if we were surrounded in the materials of that wretch-covered bed? What if those layers of mattress padding were literally enveloping us? Oh, come on, let's be honest here. Traveling through a vomit-covered bed is pretty horrifying and disgusting by itself. But add a possessed girl into the mix. Just like this amazing film, the maze needed to overcome you. Even possess you with its visuals, characters, and environments. It needs to force you on a horrific quest for this girl's very soul and spit you out on the other side. This is their goal, and they are beside themselves with excitement at the opportunity to do just that. Very, very interesting coming out from Orlando, and we have a few more things we can say about Orlando's maze. Well, number one, unbeknownst to myself, I took a look at Dr. Jimmy's latest video, and he actually put something in my head that I did not know right away. Did you realize this is going to be the 8th time that Reagan McNeil has been at Halloween Horror Nights? Pshaw, you say. No, we're not saying the initials of Philip Seymour Hoffman. You asked me why. Like, come on, this is the first time. No, it's not. Let me break it down for you. This is the 8th time. Because at Fright Nights in 1991, and then subsequently in 1992, there was a priest, actually a couple priests, that were pushing a bed down Hollywood Boulevard. And that bed, of course, had Reagan McNeil on top of it. Also in 1993, Now, when we jump to 1998, we go to Universal's Museum of Horror maze. And that was the bedroom scene where she was levitating above. Back in 1999, she was in Creature Feature. And that was in 3D. And that was the very famous head spin. Now, the last time we saw Reagan was the double shot of Scare Zones. First being HHN 19's Horrorwood Die-In, as well as last year's color cast for All Night Die-In double feature. I always say there's hints everywhere. There's just one right there. So thank you, Dr. Jimmy, for pointing that out. But we're not done. A while later, John Murdy takes center stage and delivers this soliloquy. Especially important is the warning to avoid conversations with the demon. We may ask what is relevant, but anything beyond that is dangerous. He is a liar. The demon is a liar. He will lie to confuse us, but he will also mix lies with the truth to attack us. The attack is psychological, Damien, and powerful, so don't listen to him. Remember that. Do not listen. That's Father Lancaster Marin from the 1973 classic, The Exorcist. Something beyond comprehension is happening to a 12-year-old girl named Reagan McNeil. Some dreadful entity has invaded her body, transforming the innocent young girl into a creature unrecognizable to her own mother. A creature that says appalling things and commits unspeakable acts? A demon. Reagan's mother has spared no expense to try to help her tortured daughter. Experts in science, medicine, and psychology have all been consulted. They've all examined the girl and have found no rational explanation for her mysterious condition. No diagnosis for the malady that afflicts her. No cure. Now Reagan's mother must face the terrifying truth. The daughter doesn't suffer from a medical or psychological illness. Oh no, she is possessed by the demon. Possibly even the devil himself. Welcome to The Exorcist, a terrifying new horror experience based on the scariest film of all time. Inside the McNeil house, a violent battle is raging, a battle between the forces of light and the powers of hell. At stake, not only the soul of one troubled girl, but the soul of anyone who sets foot inside the house. The demon knows you're coming. Stay on the path of the righteous and fear the darkness. Now, John Murdy himself goes furthermore into this, and everyone knows, it's been following the community for the longest time, that this is the Great White Whale. This is the major property John Murdy has wanted since day one, and I'll actually bring that up when we get to it a little bit later. See, John Murdy was scared by The Exorcist even more than any other film he's ever seen before. And he is seriously scared to recreate the maze. This is a passion project to the nth degree that they have been chasing the rights to since 2006, when Halloween Horror Nights got brought back to Hollywood. His first exposure to this, many moons ago, when he was a little kid. Now, there is a band trailer that he saw when he was only 6 years old. This traumatized him for the rest of his life. He didn't exactly see the film until several years later when he was in high school, but ever since then, it's been really hard to watch the film. And to this day, he can't bring himself to do it. It still freaks him out. He had to watch it, though, in order to get down all the intricacies of this maze. His upbringing probably had something to do with it. He had a mother. She was a Catholic theologian, an author that made this terrifying. She spoke at churches, and she would bring him along. So, there was one time she was speaking normally. A woman got up and started screaming at her, and this crazy voice, like she was possessed or something. Now, rationality said, yeah, it's probably just mental illness, but that experience stuck with him and remained with him for the remainder of his life. And to this day, it still freaks him out to even attempt a maze of this grand nature. Now, he is obsessed with confronting his darkest fears and bringing the Exorcist to Halloween Horror Nights. Now, I will give a shout out to a fellow member of the Elite and the newest member of the Popcast network, First Class Horror, Aaron, and I'll link it down in the description bar below. He actually did a video that was done yesterday showing a lot of the iconic scenes we could probably see inside The Exorcist. Now, let's talk about some of these, shall we? There's the doctor seeing Reagan violently shaking in the bed. Of course, the famous pea soup scene where Reagan vomits on Father Damien Karras. I'm guessing it's a water effect. So, when you walk into that bedroom and you see mats on the ground, you know what's coming your way. The mother opening the door and seeing the bed just rocking violently. The levitation above the bed. And of course, the power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you. More water effects. With, of course, Father Karras and Father Marin. And the infamous head spin. Now, that was in his video. But what about these things we possibly could see? Could we see the crab walk down the stairs? I don't know how this is going to work, but I think it would be a freaky image to walk into see. Obviously, because I'm a wrestling fan, it comes down to the Bray Wyatt thing in me. And when it comes down to it, it all started with this movie, and seeing a crab walk when you walk inside a house would be absolutely terrifying, to say the least. Could we go back to the Iraqi dig site, the archaeological site that everything lined up in and everything started with when they found the sacred symbol? How about the church? Will there be flashbacks? Will we see the Ouija board? And the first time that Reagan talked about her friend, Captain Howdy, which we'll get to momentarily. How about the party where she just randomly walks down and interrupts by telling this astronaut that's at the party, you're gonna die up there? What about Father Karras cleansing his soul by throwing himself down the stone steps? Maybe the exorcism death of Marin himself. Or how about this? At Monsterpalooza, John Murdy and Chris Williams had a panel, and they were talking about using blackout actors at a maze this year. A lot of people immediately jumped to the fact that this would possibly be a shout to something that we all thought was coming today or yesterday, but didn't. But no, it's for this maze. And what I'm thinking, and I truly believe this to be the case, that this may be how we see Pazuzu come to life before our very eyes. But that's not all. Oh no, this was a code name. And this was a code name that didn't have a name. Why? Because we had to break it down before we got it. And you know what? Me and Dr. Jimmy broke that code name, and I'm going to tell you exactly how. So let's look at it. It's the most challenging maze ever. I'd say so. It requires a different approach. For sure. Chances of failure are high. Yes, something this extravagant, I would say so. The score is a key element. Well, yeah, there's a very haunting score by Krzysztof Penderecki, and there's the iconic tubular bells that you guarantee we're going to hear inside the queue line. And I can totally imagine hearing that in a queue line waiting outside a soundstage. Or even when I walk into the soundstage and I feel that ice cold shiver when the AC hits me right at the right time, kind of like an American Werewolf in London last year. It just makes my arm hairs stand straight up, because you're going to see that. You're going to see fog. You're going to see the facade. You're going to see that one street light, and you're going to hear the screams of Reagan in the background. It is going to be unbelievable, to say the least. There's lots of special effects. That's pretty much covered. Hardest maze ever written. Guarantee that. It's a one-word code name, originally, which has been worked into a two-word code name, which ties into the actual maze itself. 75 pages long. But what is this code name? Well, let me break it down for you. John Murdy's already confirmed it, so I can break it down again. Now, I said on Twitter that this was the answer. So I didn't get a chance to make this video until late, but I still covered my bases by saying it on Twitter. We have an old school Disney character that's female. That's one word. And that ties into something you can buy at a jewelry store and a music store at the same time. Obviously, we're talking about like a Guitar Center or something like that, just like an old school music store. Like I have one down the road from my house, actually. So who's the character? Who's the old school character? Minnie Mouse. What can you find in both a jewelry store and also a music store? Pearl. Obviously, people wear pearls all the time, but how does it tie in? Pearl. That's right. Drum kits. Pearl drum kit. That's exactly what it is. Minnie Pearl. And if you go back in your history, you will see that Minnie Pearl was a country music singer who performed not only at the Grand Ole Opry, which I will shoot with you, I saw her at when I was a kid, and also she was on Hee Haw for a time as well. She was very famous for one major thing. She would come out in her straw hat with her price tag dangling from it, and she would say, "Howdy! Proud to be here." Howdy. Could this be Howdy? As in Captain Howdy? Now, obviously, there's a couple things that come to mind when you think Captain Howdy, and the first thing that comes to mind for me is the fact that it's an alternative rock band that featured Penn Jillette, and Murdy doesn't want to use magic, though. It's also the same character that Dee Snider plays in Strangeland. Don't think that has a connection as well. It means something far more sinister. No, it's not a hint or anything. It's much more sinister. The other name for Pazuzu is Captain Howdy, which is probably going to officially explain why I've been referencing Chris Dickinson like crazy lately. Because not only in Progress Wrestling is his stable called Team Pazuzu, which this is a clue inside a clue, the Dirty Daddy also likes to use a crucifix, again, 3 clues in one, power bomb, called the Pazuzu Bomb. So that being said, Minnie Pearl would have been a one-word code name that was Howdy, but Minnie Pearl equals out to The Exorcist. So, there was a couple more things that we're going to say before we end here. Last but certainly not least, John Murdy went on Twitter and said he's going to answer 5 and only 5 questions, because he wants to keep this as secretive as he can. Number 1, it is based solely on the original film, just like in Orlando. So, a lot of people were speculating that it would be taking from some sequels. And a lot of people also said that if Murdy ever got it, he would take from some of the sequels. He is not. This is strictly based on the original. Number 2, he feels pressure more so than ever before, because not only is this the scariest film that's ever been made, it's hard to make a maze out of one room and an antagonist that's a 12-year-old girl. That makes sense. The blackout actor is in this maze, and that's been confirmed. Now, what is a blackout actor? Well, let's say that it's a behind-the-scenes performer that maybe jiggled the doorknobs in Crimson Peak, or maybe was a puppeteer in An American Werewolf in London. This is very heavy on effects, but this blackout performer will be involved more so than in any maze this year. Makes me think there may be more than one, potentially. There's actually going to be several scenes where there's no traditional jump scares. Interesting. A lot of atmospheric content inside this maze. Sounds very interesting. Murdy is scared about the curse. And 2 things came up. Number 1, when the video first got posted on YouTube, it immediately got 666 views. That could be a coincidence. But I moved forward because he checked his likes on Facebook and he had 665. Coincidence first, but not the second time. Murdy will never again like one of your posts. I'm sorry. No, seriously, but I mean, it's kind of freaky, isn't it? To say the least. Now, it's taking inspiration from this band trailer, which we've mentioned before in this video. What happens in between the iconic scenes? That will make up the meat of this maze. And oh yeah, by the way, it's officially begun. Orlando has found its first 2 permits for the first sprung tent, as well as the parade building. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Oh, wait a minute. That's not for this announcement. Perhaps I'll keep that 911 call for later. We'll see. So if you want to follow Halloween Horror Nights Orlando on Twitter, it's at Horror Nights ORL. You can follow Halloween Horror Nights at Hollywood on Twitter at Horror Nights. And you can check out some amazing Halloween Horror Nights forums at OrlandoUnited.com, as well as HorrorNightNightmares.com and USHForums.com. Links in the description bar. And you can follow the Popcast Network on Twitter at Popcast Network. We're going to be doing our second Halloween Horror Nights podcast coming this Saturday night. Time to be announced. Check my Twitter if you want more information on that. We have a Facebook fan page, and if you like what we're doing here on Pop, then show us so. It is Facebook.com/Popcast Network. We're using it for everything now, making it a lot easier. We're at MoviePilot.com at Suro and Disney. We have a mobile app. It's on iTunes at Suro and Disney. Homemade Haunt is a mobile app as well on the Google Play Store, and First Class Horror does as well on the Google Play Store. You can find some really great Halloween Horror Nights related sites. HomemadeHaunt.net, FirstClassHorror.com, HHNCrypt.com, HHNLegacy.com, HHNGearbook.com, HHNUnofficial.com, and friends of the Popcast Network, Matt and Quint of Neozaz.com, and they're the Catacombs of Halloween Horror Nights podcast, which is going to be starting back up again fairly soon, so get ready for that. Check out the Popcast Network. We are the elite, the Halloween Horror Nights panel, Homemade Haunt, and that's at Homemade Haunt. That's Tyler and Andrew, as well as Cameron at Cryptic Cam, Ian at Theme Park Browse, Travis at Travis Coaster, Aaron at Mr. ENT92, Aaron, A-R-A-N, not spelled A-A-R-O-N, Aaron, as we call him, and that is class_horror, as well as Will, HHN Dog. You can check out some other great Halloween Horror Nights updaters, the Horror Nights updaters, also their individual channels, my friend John, Psychomassacre Films, my friend Vic, Dr. Emmett Brown 1, my friend Neil, UK HHN, my friend Aaron, the Red Steel TV, my friend David, the Crazy Englishman, my friend Tristan, HHN Fan 16, my friend Jeremy Films with 2 Z's, and HHN Assassin, which is Keegan. Also check out James, HHN Updated 1, as well as HHN Legacy, which is Chris. His link is in the description bar below, and Thrill Seeker Network, which is Mr. HHN. You can also check out some great content from other Halloween Horror Nights YouTubers. They do other content other than just Horror Nights. But we start with the incomparable Dr. Jimmy, and that's Dockimo, D-O-C-K-I-M-O, as well as Tim and Jen under the Tim Tracker, my friend Kyle from View from the Cheap Seats, it's under Cheap Seats View, as well as Disco Lazita, my friend Liz, Mark the Man in the Mala Vest, Zombie Chris, which is Zkeeper83, as well as a great character that you may or may not have seen last year. He's really good content. Check him out. It's Andrew. His link in the description bar below. And new members to the Popcast Network, new affiliates to the Popcast Network are Random Tales. First off, James, he can be found at Random Tales. His link in the description bar below. And his wife, Laura, which is under at LoopyLulu3009. And her link in the description bar below. So that being said, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. And until tomorrow, boys and girls, that's all I got to say about that.